Welcome to Hope Now, where we have honest conversations about faith, healing, and the journeys that shape us. For the month of March, our theme is forgiveness, love that heals. In this episode, we're talking about something many of us experience but don't always know how to navigate: conflict within the family. I'm really glad to be joined today by my friend Kat. She has such a heart for encouraging women, especially those walking in the early stages of motherhood. Kat is the kind of friend who gently checks in, listens with compassion, and shows up in quiet but meaningful ways when people need support. She has this beautiful way of making people feel seen, cared for, and not alone. Kat, I'm so grateful you're here today, and I truly believe your story and this conversation will be a blessing and encouragement to so many of us listening.
Hi, Amor. How are you?
I'm good. I already gave a short introduction about you, but before we proceed with our conversation, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little more about who you are?
Yep. Um, my name is Katharina Chow, Kata for short, or Kat for others. I'm from Arizona and I've been married for almost 20 years. I have two kids, a 17-year-old and a 9-year-old daughter, both girls, and I am a nurse. I work with new moms and newborns and just help them with early parenting or motherhood in general.
So, for the month of March, we're going to be talking
Mhm.
about forgiveness. And today we're going to be talking about how that looks like in a family dynamics. And, a lot of us have lots of experiences within the family that sometimes are difficult and others are more difficult than others. So, can you tell us about your family? How did it look like growing up, and what was your relationship with your parents and your siblings?
Yeah, so I am the youngest of five children, born and raised in the Philippines. My dad was a police officer and my mom was a stay-at-home mom. We were born and raised inside the church. Mom and dad was a deacon and a deaconess. All five siblings were in choir. Like I started out in children's choir and then just followed all the way until I was in my 30s, singing in the choir. Yeah, so our family was very active in serving the church. We were brought up very strong with a good foundation in faith and in the word and in the church.
And then when you were 9,
Hmm.
your family decided to move to the
Correct.
States.
Yeah, so when we were 9, we moved to Seattle, Washington, and it was quite an adventure to get all seven families in one-way ticket to the US. A lot of our families pulled in all their money to allow us to all travel at the same time. And I think my parents only had like a few $100s in their pocket. When we first moved here, like two of my brothers went to my aunt's house, and then the three girls stayed with my other aunt, with my parents. And then mom worked for the first time in her life, to provide for the family. We moved here in like February of 1993. And I believe by springtime, mom and dad were able to accumulate enough money to have our own two-bedroom, one-bath apartment. Again, that was all because of how good God is and just provided us with so many people who were able to bless us and help mom and dad, stand on their own 2 feet.
In what ways did they influence the person that you are today?
I think with the just how they lived their life, mom and dad worked hard for everything that they have, and they put God and performing their duties above all else. They live life according to the word. They love God and they loved others and how they serve. If they're not working, they're with the family, and if they're not with the family, they're at church. So that was their three foundation every day.
Can you tell us the dynamics between you and your parents since you're the bunso of
Yeah.
5? How is that different from their dynamics with your other siblings?
Being the youngest, I didn't really have a lot of responsibilities because, my eldest brother, being the eldest son and eldest daughter, they just help a lot around the house, and I just look up to all my siblings. I think when you're young, you don't really appreciate your parents as much as you do when you're an adult and you're raising your own family. And then I think that's when you realize how much they love you and then how much they work and what they will give up to give you a better life opportunities. So very close to mom and dad, especially after having my eldest Cam and then again with Charlie. But I would say I'm very close with mom and dad. And at the end, when I started working, I just wanted to give back to them. So every time we would go on vacation, I would always take mom and dad with me everywhere, like Chicago, Hawaii, California, Florida. And my siblings will do the same. They'll take them to cruise. We just love and appreciate them so much that and we know how hard they work. Like mom never worked in her life until she got here. She worked in a nursing home. She does the laundry at the adult family home. And then dad worked 3 jobs when we moved here from the Philippines. He was at nighttime security at a hotel. And then during the day, he worked as custodian worker. And then in the weekends, he'll do a maintenance for my uncle's rental properties. So dad worked from like 11 p.m. to 7 a.m., comes home, takes a nap, and then works from 9 to 3. And he did that for 3 years until they were able to afford a down payment for the house, you know? When you talk about moving to America for the American dream, it doesn't mean life here in America is easy. It just means that you work hard, and with a lot of hard work, you're able to provide for your family. So everything that we had was from my mom and my dad's sweat, and hard work. And so I think I learned what it means to work hard and to grind and appreciate family, you know.
Being your friend, I could attest that you really have all good things to say about your parents. And hearing stories like that make you realize, you know what? Whatever we have now is
Mm.
because of our parents' hard work. It's because of
Mhm.
the previous generations'
Yeah.
blood, sweat, and tears.
Mm.
And I could see that you really respect your parents, you really love
Mhm.
them. Then I remember just last year, something tragic happened. You have lost both of your parents within
Mhm.
months. And I know it was such a profound and difficult season for you. Um,
Mhm.
and what were the last few years of your parents' lives like for you and your family?
2018, mom was starting to be very forgetful, and then she would fall here and there. And then I think that's when I initially took her to her like doctor's appointment, and there was concern that she might have Alzheimer's. And Alzheimer's is just your brain is shrinking and it's affecting your long term and short term memory. So, mom was diagnosed with that. It's like so gradual. It was very slow until it wasn't slow anymore. And then a year after that, mom was diagnosed with Parkinson's, which was what was causing a lot of the fall. It's rare for elderly to have both Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, and my mom had both. We took a family trip to Hawaii in 2019. It was 3 siblings with mom and dad. And that was our last trip with mom and dad. In the moment when we were planning it, we were aware this might be their mom's last trip because it was hard to travel. She needed a wheelchair, and the stamina just wasn't as strong when it comes to traveling. So we knew that she was falling, and each fall was getting worse and worse. And it was just hard. And I think at that time, everyone is working full time. Everyone were raising their families. I wanted to add what I love about my mom and dad was that they were able to help us jumpstart our career because they were able to raise our kids. Like we didn't have to worry about taking the kids to daycare because mom and dad was there helping us. It was hard for mom because in her head she can do it, but her body has a late delay reaction, so she falls a lot. All of a sudden it happened so fast that my mom aged right before our eyes. And it wasn't just a normal aging. She was getting sick, and her body physically looked how she's always looked, but her body was failing her. And it was just a hard thing to accept that our parents need caring. Mom ended up needing to be taken to a adult family home, and that was not without trying. Mom was just falling so much, and we weren't able to give the attention and the care that she needed to keep her safe while trying to be a working mom, while trying to be a young mom to young kids, while trying to keep a marriage, work. It was just a lot of stress. And my mom was suffering because she was falling every day. I initiated the conversation that maybe it's time for her to go to an adult family home. And that was met with disagreement. My other siblings didn't think that that was right. And so my eldest brother was like, okay, let me take care of mom. Maybe it's because you guys have young children. That's why mom kept falling. But mom still kept falling. And then the stress of taking care of your aging parents also took a toll in them. They tried for almost a good year, but it was still hard, and mom still kept falling. And finally, everyone was able to agree. I'm like, okay, let's start looking for an adult family home for her. The first time we moved her in, it was during COVID 2020. We had to say goodbye. And then once we say goodbye, we couldn't see her again. Like, we couldn't give each other a hug. It was just through the window because um, it was COVID. And then that was, we were in the driveway, we were crying, we were in the window waving at my mom, and she didn't really understand what was going on. And then everyone went home. We all felt awful. We all felt guilty for dropping her off. And then 30 minutes later, the caregiver called and I'm like, your mom just fell and she has a big bruise right here. And they ended up taking her to the ER right after that.
Wow. I know that sometimes seasons like this could be very stressful because each sibling have families to take care of.
Yes.
It's extra stressful to have to deal with something like this. And, sometimes seasons of stress can
hmm
bring tension within the families.
hmm
How did that season affect your dynamics with your siblings?
I think there was an unsaid expectation that mom and dad will be with me or one of the sisters. We tried to keep mom and dad as long as we could, but there was um judgment, guess, is how I would put it, of like, mom is falling because of ABC. What it felt like was that it's hard for you to judge of what we're doing if you haven't lived in our shoes and see that we're trying to do everything that we can to take care of mom and dad. And despite of everything that we're doing, we're failing her. And I think there was just judgment on their part. And that's hurtful. And, I like, it was hurtful at the time. We were offended at it at the time, and we couldn't agree on the best way forward. And it was hard. There was a period where we weren't talking to each other. And if we were talking with each other, we were just hurting each other with words, with judgment. So you know, that was hard. And that's why I was like, it's best if mom goes to an adult family home care. That way we could spend quality time with her versus a caregiver fatigue. Because I felt bad. Like, I would yell at mom all the time. I'm like, Mom, I told you to not do that. I told you to call us. I told you not to get up. The last year that I had her at my home, I felt like I was just yelling at her. And it doesn't feel good. I felt, you know, horrible. And then I remember just like praying, like, okay, God, give me the patience. Like, this is hard. Give me the patience. And then every morning I'm like, start yelling at her again, and I'm like, oh gosh, this is hard. And then not meeting everyone's expectations. It was just a lot of disagreement and fighting and hurtful things at the time. And then I remember during that time, there was still a lot of drama around my dad. His memory is getting it's poor as well. There's times where he would get lost and then it'll take him a while to get home and because he's aging. And then that's when my dad got really weak. I'm pretty sure he went through a depression and he just never left the room. And because he never left the room, I think he got weak, would visit my dad and found my dad on the floor of the bed and he couldn't get up because he had fallen. And then I would fix his medications and there's times where he'll forget to take his medications for a few days, or there's times where he'll double up on his medication on the same day, And so, that was getting dangerous too. So my prayer is to bring mom and dad back together because that's my mom's favorite place in the world was just next to my dad. And so I just gradually, had said that in passing, and then she heard me and she's like, oh, okay, let me see what I could do because it's a adult family home for female residents. So they've never had a male resident there. Within a year, one resident left, and then at the March, was like, oh, I think we could take your dad. And I'm like, okay, let me start the paperwork for that. And it takes a few months for the paper to get approved. And then the spot was available right there and then. And my husband was like, we don't want that room to go to another resident. So let's just pay for it now until the insurance kicks in. And then so I had presented that to my siblings, and my siblings were like, it's expensive. It's like at the time, it was double our mortgage. And that was just a monthly payment to get dad into the adult family home. And so a lot of my siblings are like, why are you trying to move dad? He's fine. He's fine. He he doesn't need to go to the adult family home, And I'm like, no, dad needs help. They need to be together. And so that was another round of hard conversation. Again, I think both times trying to send mom and dad into adult family home, both times was initiated by me. Again, it's not the norm thing to do. So it was met with resistance and disagreement in doing that. But then my husband was like, I know what you're trying to do. You're just trying to get mom and dad back together, and this is good for them. And Dan was like, I have your back. We're gonna go through with this with or without your siblings' approval. So we went ahead, and that was another year of hard conversations, a lot of hurt.
It's such a complicated space to be in, right?
Mhm.
Because not only that you're trying to wrap your mind around your parents aging, the parents
Mhm.
that were once, the people that you
So
look up to
capable.
because they're so strong and so capable and they can do anything. They're your
Mhm.
heroes,
Mhm.
right? And then just seeing their bodies fail, that's very hard. And
Mhm.
then you couple that with some conflicts with your siblings.
Mhm.
That adds another dimension. I wonder how those conflicts affected you emotionally, being on top of the struggle that you have seeing your parents
Yeah.
aging.
Yeah. So, being the youngest of the five kids, I've always want to be liked and I want to respect my elders and take their lead. But during that time, I was the one leading and making choices and making decisions. And that's not my role in life. I don't know why they struggled with that. But for me, it was hard having everyone mad at me. Not at the Emma. At the Emma is the fourth one. We were the last two who's been taking care of my mom and dad. And we had mom and dad when they were starting to get sick and get weak, right? So we really knew and understood because we were the one that was giving each other reprieve when things got really hard. So we understood what it was like. But I think the older siblings just they didn't live it. They didn't understand. They weren't, walking in our shoes. So that was hard. I don't know if I was disappointing them or I don't know what it was. We just didn't agree on a lot of things that was happening, and it affected me, emotionally because I was going through um my own guilt of not being enough for, mom and dad and and not um and not meeting their needs, so I felt bad. Like I'm always yelling at mom or dad and then fighting with the older siblings. And I think at the time I was going through a whole different thing with my eldest daughter. And um what I was going through with her was hard as well. So it was just a lot going on top of working full time. It was such an exhausting time. And again, it was COVID. So it was a hard season. It was a hard thing to do day in and day out. It was exhausting and it was emotional and it was just hard.
Um, Last year, I remember first you lost your mom, and then after that, you lost your dad.
Yeah.
And how did that loss and grief change the dynamics within,
Yeah.
your relationship with your siblings?
Yeah, I think it was a few months after mom first went to the adult family home. They understood now we get to enjoy our time with mom. There's no caregiver fatigue, and mom was safe, right? So I think everyone appreciated that. And then when my dad finally got admitted into the adult family home with my mom, so they ended up having the master's bedroom. When my mom was getting sick and she had lost a lot, like maybe 20 pounds in a short span of time. A nurse came in and said, we need to have a conversation about hospice care. And because Kuya Jeng is a nurse and I'm a nurse, it was a conversation that was between the two of us, and we had to share that information to my siblings who were non-medical. They didn't understand, like, why do we have to put mom in hospice care? We were like, I think it's time. Mom looked in pain. She was barely eating anything, so we're like, I think it's time. We had 2 weeks to say goodbye to her. We had time to say goodbye to her. That was when my mom passed. And then 7 months later, my dad wasn't sick. He was just aging. He's diabetic. He has high blood pressure. He's had like second stage renal disease. One day, the adult family home called us. I'm like, hey, your dad didn't look good this morning, so we had to take him to the ER. And then he got admitted to the ER on a Thursday for severe dehydration that affected his heart. So ended up being in the ICU. I was at dad's bedside in the ICU. And then all night I'm like, hey dad, I'm here, let's get you strong so you can come home. Holding his hands and just watching TV, not knowing that that was going to be my last night with him. And then I saw it coming, his breathing changed, and then all of a sudden his heart stopped. They did a full code on him. They worked on him for like an hour and a half, and we got the heartbeat back, and then he was intubated, he was on life support. So not knowing that that was gonna be my last time, it still shows how good God was, because I can't even imagine if that had happened and I was here in Arizona. Yeah. So it happened fast. I think after mom and dad died, like towards the funeral planning for mom and dad, that's when they kind of apologized for the words that was said. And that was healing for me, like we understood what you were doing. You weren't being selfish. I wasn't trying to cause difficulty in my siblings' life by doing the things that I was doing. I was just trying to do what was best for mom and dad. I didn't ask for it. I didn't expect it, but when it came, it was definitely healing. And I think while going through it, I was disappointed in myself for not being there for mom and dad. And I think I needed to forgive myself, right? So, and I needed to put myself in their shoes, that even though we were all siblings, we all have our different life, like we're all going through our own struggles. And because we're five different people, we do life differently. And at the time, because we did life differently, I could see why there was judgment and why we were so critical of each other. So a lot of hurt was coming from individual lenses, right? And then trying to enforce what you would do into the situation on other people's lives. Like that just doesn't work, at all. But yeah, we got through it. And I feel like mom and dad's testimony and living legacy is that all of the five kids are in faith, in the word, and we love each other deeply. Um, Mom and dad lived out their wedding vows, like through, you know, sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, until death parts us. They were so blessed by God to have experienced and done life together and witness all their kids graduate from high school, graduate from college, witness each one of us get married, was a part of taking care of all the 10 kids. And then to have died with your family surrounding you until your very last breath, um, that just shows how good God is. In honor of my mom and my dad, so last year we went to the Philippines, 16 of us. We showed the grandkids, the cousins where, Lolo and Lola was born, and the city. And I felt like that was such a healing place. Like, celebrate mom and dad, and then forgive each other for everything that transpired in the past 3 years. I think it had to happen so that we could see how good God is through all of that, through it all. You could see God's hands over it. Like, it was hard, but I knew that God was gonna redeem everyone and just carry us through that hard season. Yeah.
What a way to honor your mom and
Mm.
your dad's legacy,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
To just honor their wish for you guys to just be together and love each other and
Mm-hmm.
make your relationship stronger as
Mm-hmm.
siblings.
Mm-hmm.
And just you talking about them this way is a testament of how good of parents they were, and
Oh,
how really just a testament of God's hand over them and over
mm-hmm.
you and
Yeah.
over the generations to come. Thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing your story. I know it's not easy to remember not so pleasant memories,
Yeah.
but like you said, everything happens
Mm-hmm.
to strengthen us, to
Mm-hmm.
strengthen our faith, and I think more than anything, to glorify God. Because at the end of the
Mm-hmm.
day, we know that our strength will fail, even our
Mm-hmm.
relationships fail, even
Mm-hmm.
our mental capacity fail, but God's love, God's strength never fail. And
Mhm.
that's a beautiful testimony of who He is in your life. For one last question,
Mhm.
we probably have listeners out there who are carrying grief, family conflict, or even
Mhm.
difficulty forgiving. What message of hope and forgiveness would you want to share with them?
Yeah. I think what I have learned after going through this with my siblings was that we all carry a heavy load of responsibilities. And when it comes to taking care of our aging parents, we don't do life the exact same way. And I guess my advice is to help where you can, leave judgment at the door. Just know that everyone is doing their best. And if one sibling is falling short, instead of judging, to offer help and support. There's a saying that it takes a village to raise a child, and I've learned that it takes a village to take care of aging, parents, and just being part of the solution instead of like passing judgment and criticizing each other during this season. I guess is my advice for families out there. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Mama. Um, Friends, before we end the episode, I always ask my guests to pray for those listeners, especially for those who are
Mhm.
struggling right now. So I've asked Kat to pray for us in her native language.
Then my
In
native
English.
language is English.
And I hope that this prayer of comfort and this prayer of hope and forgiveness be an encouragement to someone out there.
Okay. Father in heaven, thank you so much for this time to have with the more, to share about my mom and my dad, and to be able to share what I went through with my siblings and caring for mom and dad as they got older and then mom got sick. Thank you for helping me and my siblings get through that hard times. And thank you for bringing us through it and bringing us closer than ever. I pray for the listeners that if they are going through similar experiences with family conflict in the process of taking care of an ill family member or um, aging parents, can you please be with them and remind them how much you love them and that um, this is a season of, you know, hard. It could be hard, but you're always there to guide us and to always provide for us. And thank you for doing that for my family. And thank you for giving a more this space to have um, your children share their stories and how you always show up for us and every day. And yeah, thank you so much for everything, God. And we love you in Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thanks for listening to Hope Now. If this story encouraged you, share it with someone who needs a little hope today. Until next time, remember, hope lives here. Subscribe and join us for new episodes of Hope Now. Real stories, real faith, real hope. Now.